Now, career as it is defined is the occupational position a person has had over many years. Because if you have not joined yet in any organization, your career is yet to start. Therefore, it is over many years that a person has spent in an organization, we call that a career. Now, career management, the term that we normally use, is the process for enabling employees for better understand and develop their career skills and interest, and to use these skills and interests more effectively. Now, what are those, by the way? Career development, as we all know, is the lifelong series of activities that contribute to a person's career exploration, establishment, success, and so on and so forth. We also talk about the career planning, which we normally hear. It's the deliberate process through which someone becomes aware of personal skills, interests, knowledge, motivations, characteristics, etc., etc. Now, this is where an individual has to collaborate with his boss or his mentor and then try and do career planning for an individual. Sometimes the organizations has got a plan for these career development processes, right? Now, careers today are no simple progression of employment in one or two firms or with a single profession, because what we find is that once we talk about this career progression, there are a large number of things that we encounter. All right? Now, an individual accepts responsibility for their own career. They access your interest, seek out career information, and establish goals and career plans. Utilize development opportunities, talk with your manager about your career, follow through on realistic career plans. Now, this is an individual that they have to do, because as we said, career planning or career management requires the involvement of more than one party. Normally, we talk about three parties who are there: the individual, the manager, and the organization. Therefore, the individuals have got to look at, accepting responsibility. They have got to assess your interest, skills, and values, seek out career information, establish goals, utilize development opportunities, talk with your manager, and follow through our realistic career plans. The manager's role will be fourfold. They provide timely performance feedback, provide developmental assignments and support, participate in career development discussions, and support employee development plans. Similarly, an organization has got to communicate mission, policies, and procedures. They provide training and development opportunities. They also have got to provide career information and career programs and a variety of career options which are available to an individual within an organization. Now, what we need to do is that everybody needs a mentor. In local terms or generic terms, we say that you need a godfather. Godfather not in a negative sense. Here, a mentor is one that you have got to choose. Now, choosing an appropriate potential mentor is very, very important, because if you choose a wrong kind of person who cannot provide you or who doesn't know about career progressions, will be of no use. Sometimes when you approach somebody to become your mentor, they may turn down, or the mentor must understand as to what you expect in terms of time and advice from them, because if you are too demanding, needing too much time, they may not accept you. Now, every individual should have an agenda and respect the mentor's time, because beggars can't be choosers. So here the process is that you have got to seek help. Therefore, you have got to respect the time of the mentor as and when they are free, you should talk to them about your career. Because until and unless you have a good mentor, it will be very, very difficult for career management process. Now, the employer's role in career development would be that a realistic job previews are present, the jobs that is the person is doing, and the jobs they are likely to do in future. That has to be prepared. Another thing is that you should not provide sundry jobs. It has to be challenging jobs, because if you are not in the first job is not challenging, then you will not go anywhere. So first jobs has to be very, very challenging, because challenges motivates people, as we believe in HRD. And career oriented appraisal system should be there, rather than just finding fault and using that for reward and punishment. This has to be for potential development of the employee. There has to be job rotation, because if somebody is stuck in one job for entire life, there cannot be any kind of career management. They will not learn the various aspects of organizational functioning and may not progress in the organization very far. Therefore, job rotation is also very, very important, that they try and learn from scratch to the all kinds of jobs which are there, and then mentoring has to be provided by the organization. They can appoint a mentor for individuals, or individuals can choose a mentor that is there. And networking and interactions are very, very important in today's environment. If you want your career to grow, you must network with people. Network with those who can advise you. Network with those who can, give you information about opportunities which are available within an organization and outside an organization, within the country and outside the country, if you really want your career to grow. Similarly, innovative career development initiatives that is being taken, that is provide each employee with individual budget, offer on-site or online career centers within the organization, encourage role reversals, establish corporate campus, and help organize career succession teams within the organization, provide career coaching that is also there, and provide career planning workshops, utilize computerized on and off line career development programs that is there, and establish a dedicated facility for career development. Now managing promotions is also part of the career. Here, making promotion decisions. The decision would be seniority or competence, the rule. That is, a person is promoted based on the competence, or is it that the person has spent certain number of years that they are promoted? Sometimes we have got both plans in operation, that you have got, seniority-based promotions, and you have got career-based promotions, especially in the university system or government organizations. You have got both principles in operation, that there are certain open posts on which people will compete for, based on open posts, cadre posts which are there, and others, since not everybody will get the opportunity to grow because not many posts are available, you are providing them departmental promotions or career advancements. This phenomena is even very common in the West, because the positions are not available. They elect people for the career progressions. Similarly, how should we measure competence? That is very, very important. A process that if you are able to measure competence, then we find it is good. Otherwise, there will be problems. And is the process formal or informal? Normally, a formal process should be there, but sometimes only formal process does not work. Therefore, we'll have to have both formal and informal. There has to be vertical, horizontal, or other types of career progressions. See, what are these? You find that when you are promoted, you are given higher positions, you are given new designations, and you grow For example, if you are working as an assistant manager in any organization, you will grow to become a manager in the same organization. But sometimes the position of manager is not available. What will happen? And everybody cannot become a manager. Every assistant manager will not get the position of a higher level manager, but they are promoted in the organization, but without getting a designation of a manager who is occupying the higher position. In that case, what happens that you are not given the designation, but you are given additional responsibility with additional salary, which is matching with the higher position, so that although you are not given the designation, you do get monetary benefits and so on and so forth. There can be other means that you are given an additional position somewhere else. That can also be possible, if not in the same line that is there. So what we find that in the organizations, you have both horizontal and vertical, and sometimes the third options also available within the organization as far as the promotions are concerned. Then sometimes we also have got to look at the transfers. Employees' reasons for desiring a transfer is that personal enrichment and growth. We also talk about more interesting jobs, a career convenience, that is better hours and locations, and great advancement possibilities which are there. But sometimes we also hinder. We don't want a transfer because of personal reasons. We do not want promotions. We deny promotions just because we want to remain in the same city, maybe same locality or something of that kind. So both things are there as far as transfers are concerned, and therefore we have got to manage transfers as to for what purpose these transfers are. Employers' reasons for transferring employees to vacate a position where an employee is no longer needed, or it can be to fill positions where an employee is needed. It can also be to find a better fit for an employee within the firm and boost productivity by consolidating positions which are there. So these are the reasons why employers transfer people. There can be diversity enhancement through career management, that is having few people of color employee in the hiring department. This is we are talking about in American context, but in Indian context you talk about the regional and other kinds of things. The old boy network of informal friendship that you do not want that to continue. Lack of women mentors is also one of the important aspects. A lack of highly visible assignments and developmental experiences that is there. We also have got a lack of company role models for members of the same racial or ethnic group, and the flexibility is yet another thing that we have. We also have got enhancing women's and minorities prospects, which is very, very important today, because we have more than 50% people who fall in this category. The minority would be 49, OBC and other combined would be 49%, plus the women whose numbers happen to be very, very large. So eliminate institutional barriers for them, for the minorities and women, improve networking and mentoring, eliminate the glass ceiling, and institute flexible schedules and career tracks which are there. When we talk about employee commitment, we talk about old contacts. Do your best and be loyal to us, and we will take care of your careers. Earlier in paternalistic organizations, we never cared for the career growth things. It is only a phenomena which came up with the democratic organizations and professional organizations that we have today, because in those days we used to assume that the boss Lalaji will be is the person who knows everything. He knows when a person has to be promoted. They know when a person has to be given an enhancement in salary, because they are the benefactors and they have provided you employment. Though that phenomena is no longer there. Therefore, today we have got to care for it. We also find out that new contacts do your best for us, and they'll be loyal to us for as long as you are here, and we will provide you with the developmental opportunities. These are all kinds of contracts that is there, the psychological contracts that used to operate in past. Today, this is no longer dependent on the loyalty, because loyalty is a gone word. It is no longer, loyalty and sacrifice is no longer there in the organizations. Then career management, employee commitment. The commitment-oriented career development efforts would be career development programs, career workshops that uses vocational guidance, and that includes computerized skill training and other kinds of programs which are useful for this. We also have got career-oriented appraisals that provide with the ideal occasion to link the employee's performance and career interest and development needs into coherent career plans which are there. Because when you look at the appraisal formats, it does say at the bottom as to what will make you perform better, and with the given kind of set of skill and performance, where do you see yourself in 2 years time from now or 5 years time from now, depending on which place in the career ladder the person is located. Then we also have got retirement, the point at which one gives up one's work, usually between the age of 60 and 65. That is there. This 60 and 65 is not non-operative in some of the Western world. There they continue to work even beyond this time. That is 65 to 70 years. But in India, we have got 60 to 65 years. In certain cases, you are re-employed up to the age of 70 years. Then we have got pre-retirement practices that has to be seen, explanation of social security benefits, leisure time counseling, financial and investment counseling, health counseling, psychological counseling, counseling for second career, and counseling for second career inside the company if it is available. Because in the absence of this counseling process, what we find is that we sometimes fail as far as our growth is concerned, and we become useless. Although otherwise we can live slightly longer, but we do not do anything. You have got to identify your career stage, that is the growth stage, exploration stage, and establishment stage. Establishment stage will be divided into trials sub-stage or stabilization sub-stage and mid-career crisis sub-stage that is there. Because normally what we find is that in the mid-career, people get crisis because promotions are not very quick. Initially, you do get promotions, but as you get in your 40s, so the age between 40s and 50s is called, career crisis stage, where you are in mid-career crisis. And therefore, if you're not getting promotions, what you must do to obtain that promotion and become more productive during that period. Then we also have got maintenance stage. Once you get those promotions, once you get advancements, you need to maintain that. And then decline stage is also there, where you are not getting progressions at the same level. Identifying your occupational orientation will be realistic orientation, investigative orientation, social orientation, conventional orientation, and enterprising orientations which are there. These are also the thing that we look at. We also have got artistic orientations within this. Now, choosing an occupational orientation depends on people as to which one do you want in terms of these career progressions which are there, and accordingly you move in the career ladder that is there. You need to identify your career anchors, that is a concern or value that person you will not give up if a career choice has to be made. Because not necessarily you will do anything to get your career progression. It's not like hook and crook. You have got to move with values, the values you do not want to give up, the social system that you want to give up, the rules that you do not want to break for progressing in the career. Similarly, typical career anchors would be technical and functional competence, managerial competence, creativity enhancement, that is how many alternatives can you generate for your career progressions, autonomy and independence that you expect within the organizations. Because we talked about in the initial lecture about that the culture which is called octopus culture, where openness, trust, and other things were there. Autonomy and independence was also part of the thing. And then job security becomes important as far as the organizations are concerned. But over security is bad for the career growth, whereas moderate security is always good for it, and insecurity is also bad for the career growth of an individual. Finding right job is very, very important. Do your own local research, personal contacts to get information on the availability of job, which advertisement to answer and which advertisement not to answer. Employment agencies also you have got to choose with care, and executive recruiters that happens. You have to be careful about these things as to how to find the right job from the sources that is being mentioned and where you are going to get it. Because if you do not start on the right track, going very far will not be possible. You also have got career counselors who can tell you what you can do with your potentials. That is very, very important. And executive marketing consultants are also there who use it. Now, what happens that this employers' websites are also available. What we find that normally this career thing as to which career choice you should make should begin at your school level, not the high school level, but before you get to the high school level. That is normally at class 6th and 7th level. Your assessment is being done by the schools. They tend to gauge your interest. They tend to gauge your potential as to which area interests you the most and where can you really, grow into. And at that particular stage, you choose as to which particular area. Are you going for an art, or are you going for a music, or are you going for a science? Within science, are you going for a bio, or are you going for a mathematics? So that is very, very important that thing happens. But alas, we do not have this kind of, career management being done at the school level. But the negativity is that the career is decided when a child is born. A child, when he or she is born, the grannies, the aunties, and others, they decide about the career of the girl child or a boy. Normally, they will tell you, oh, this boy is very good looking. He has got a long finger and all that. He will make a very good engineer, or he will make a very good surgeon, that kind of thing. Or the girls normally will be told that she is going to make a very good doctor of, doing gynecology or OBG area that she will follow. So all these things are just words that creates burden on the infant mind right from the beginning. But that is not a career management that we have. Career management has to be done at the school level, as we said, at the middle school level, or at best it can be done at the high school level. That is there but before you get to the class 9th, that you must decide upon as to which area your potential lies. Otherwise, failure will be very, very common in terms of the competitive examinations that you go through. And the number of applicants in those competitive exams will be very, very large. If you read the interview of JEE topper yesterday that came up, you would know that the person had a great interest in the area of science, that is physical sciences. Thus, he could score a perfect 300 by 300 in JEE of the February examination. So that is basically why, because a person's interest is known to him or her, and the person has worked on that particular line for over a long period of time to build up a career in that particular area. Now, the thing is that in today's professional world, what is required is that you have got to prepare a resume. A preparation of resume is not a job that you sit down and on a computer, a laptop, or your iPad and just type out whatever you remember. It takes time to think over as to how you are going to prepare a resume, what you must have it. You must have a clear-cut guidelines for preparation of a resume writing. Therefore, what we find that a resume should have an introductory information that you provide in the beginning. Even before that introductory information, the purpose of the resume has to be written as to why you have prepared a resume, because resumes are not all-purpose resume. Resume has to be purpose built resume that we get, and according to the purpose, we slot in informations that we need. Sometimes we do not give all informations, for a particular job. We retain certain information because it is not relevant to the job. We also have got objectives, job objectives as to what you want, the scope that you want to write. You also have to write your accomplishments that you have done and the length as to how long you want that resume to be. You normally have got a personal data being written, that is biographical data that you write about. You make resume, scannable as far as possible. Then you find that if your resume is attractive, if it is readable, it interests people, they will go through, and chances of your success will also increase. However, if the resume is not there, which is attractive, you are not there to explain things, so things has to be explained. That is, there we are not there to explain, therefore this has to be explained on the resume. But too lengthy a description will also detract people. So you have to be careful as to what to write. When you are going for an interview, we only have the option that prepare, because there is no end to it. You must discuss with people. You must practice how to speak. You must, talk about your postures that you want, the dress patterns that you have, all those things. Preparation has to be done on all counts. The knowledge counts, the presentation counts, the body language, the accent, and everything that has to be there. You also have got to uncover the interviewer's needs as to why they have called you for interview. Here I said that you have to be careful as far as your communication ability is concerned. The transaction analysis that we talked about in the beginning. You must do your own transaction analysis in detail before going for this particular kind of interviews. We also find that relate yourself to the person's needs. Otherwise, if you don't relate yourself, then you will not be selected. Think before answering questions, not that before a person finishes his or her question, you start answering them. Listen to the question in full before you answer. Think, take pause, and as far as possible, be logical to the person. Do not be harsh. Be firm but polite as far as possible. Make a good appearance and show enthusiasm rather than being lukewarm or being passive in your approach that is there. Now, once you have already done your career development that we have seen, what we need to do is that we will be looking at yet another area which is important for us. Is this slide visible now? Although blank. Hello?
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay. Now we're talking about training. Once a person has been recruited, once we know about the career progressions in the organizations, we need to train people. We have got to develop people within the organization. That is, without this, we will not be able to match people with the role that they are going to perform. Therefore, we define training as a process through which an employee develops the knowledge, skills, and establish abilities to perform a job. This is job-oriented training. This is meant for the organizations only. This is not a general kind of training definition that we want to see. It is the process through which an employee develops the knowledge, skill, and abilities to perform a job, right? Now, if you look at development, development is a process that provides growth opportunity to learn beyond essential competence to build individual and organizational effectiveness. Now, just see the difference. The first one would be the first step, because training is for development, and therefore we say that it is a process of providing growth opportunity to learn beyond essential competence to build individual and organizational effectiveness. Not only to do the present job well, you also train yourself to do the future job well. That is where the training comes up. Now, what is training? If you have got to look at plain and simple English, training is it noun or a verb? Anybody who can tell me, is training a noun or a verb?
I think noun, sir.
It's a verb, sir.
It's a
But it is a gerund noun.
Sir, it is a noun, sir. Gerund.
Well, my dear, it is not a verb. It is a noun, which means activity leading to skilled behavior, right? The meaning is that it is noun, and the meaning is activity leading to skilled behavior. It is synonymous with grooming and or preparing. That is preparation that you make, preparation for taking a future assignments or doing the present assignment well. Training refers to what many people would, call professional development as well, right? Now, training and development is the field concerned with workplace learning, and it is to improve performance. Now, before I go into the detail, I'll say that please concentrate, because you will not get similar information in one book that you will refer to, or one or two books, because this is where you have large amount of problems. Please concentrate on this. Be very, very careful when I'm talking about this. I'll give you slides, of course. I'm sharing it at the moment as well. But the thing is that you have to be careful. This is an area which is quite neglected in India, and it is also neglected in terms of written descriptions which are available as far as this training field is concerned. Since I had the opportunity to work in this area quite a bit so far, towards the fag end of my career, this is the area which I have been nurturing. Therefore, I'm asking you to be quite careful. In military, training means to drill and keep in shape in case of deployment orders. It is the same as exercise, but it is only for military. This is not for organizational training that we are talking about. Now, it is widely recognized that training is a powerful instrument for improving staff productivity through development of people. But what is not perceived or appreciated is the fact that training is a scientific field, and like any other scientific activity, demands exactitude of operations in terms of objective and methods that we want to achieve. Because if we are not following this as a scientific field, we will do it on an ad hoc basis and get nowhere. Now, just look at this particular statement. It says that in the 21st century, the education and skill of workforce will end up being dominant competitive weapon. In fact, it has already become a dominant competitive weapon. Last Theodore wrote some times back that it will become. It is already there. So if you talk about, manpower development, this is giving a strategic advantage to the organizations. This is giving them competitive edge over other organizations. Therefore, this is called a competitive weapon in the hands of the organization called human resources. There are two options available to the organizations, we all know. That is, either they will develop the employee Either they will buy employee from outside, that is hiring from outside, or already well-developed employees who are there, or the option is that we will develop them through, training and development activities. Now the thing is that if we follow only one option, it will be very, very difficult because you may not be able to develop all kinds of employee within the organization because every organization has got its limitations. But hiring from outside, it will be available, the skill will be available, but orientation will not be available. So whatever you do in the development process, orientation has to be provided to if you are hiring from outside. Therefore, you cannot do away with the training and development department in any organization that you are operating in. Now, if you talk about the investment on training, our investment is very, very poor in terms of this investment. In US, we have got more than $100 billion that is spent on the training today, whereas in India, we do not have that kind of money being spent. Although we happen to be a very, very large country, we also have got a very large industrial base. In terms of number of days spent on training, what we find that in US, a person spends almost 1 to 2 months time on training in the entire career, right? And they spend at least a fortnight on training every year. In UK, this phenomena is not very common, and therefore what we find that they spend about a week to 10 days on training every year. But in India, we spend those number of days in the entire career. That is, we go for a training and we spend hardly about a fortnight in the entire career that is there. But this process is changing. I'm not saying this is still persist, but in some of the organization it still exists. But large number of organization are doing great job in terms of providing training to individuals who are there.
Sir, is there any text on slide?
I beg your pardon?
Sorry, sir. Sir, right now we can see the text, sir. After just heading, sir, why training, and there was nothing on the text, so I was just wanted to confirm.
No. Is it available now?
Yes, sir. Yes, now it's available.
Any trainer faces this question from others as well as from himself or herself, himself or herself, as to why training has to be given. Because if you are a trainer, then you must know the art of training. Therefore, training of the trainer has to be provided. That we will look at if we have time to discuss. We will also find that they have to know as to why training, why are they providing training, right? What is the purpose of this training? They must ask themselves. Is it of any use? Is it worth? Now, all these questions are there. If it is answered, we find that training will be. Now, if a trainer believes that there is enormous value in training, the belief must be backed by hard facts or clearly observable difference that is created by training inputs. A belief in training without the data is blind and is likely to be easily toppled by many, a few powerful arguments or questions that can be asked. Therefore, what we have is that in today's scenario, the training, whenever we talk about, is also followed by training evaluation process. And not only a simple evaluation process that follows, we are also determining training effectiveness. And therefore, we have got training effectiveness tests as to how far this training has been effective. And we also have got ROI approach as far as this training is concerned, where return on investment is calculated in terms of what is there, both for hard skill training and soft skill training that is being provided. We will see in future as to how these evaluations are being done. We also find that the impact of training or lack of it is visible all around us. Conversely, in our culture, we seem to protest only when we are affected. It indicates gross shortage of training. So if you talk about training as a generic term, I'm not talking about organizational training, what we find that we lack this training right from our childhood. Right? Do we lack training from the childhood? Training today is no longer just skill-based training or knowledge-based training. The value has to be there, the value system. If the training lacks values, then the training is of no use as such. Now, just see this slide. We'll be able to get something. Of training competence across the entire training spectrum, starting from nursery to leadership development programs for the top management of the organization that we are concerned with at the moment, right? So when I'm talking about things, the next the next point that is there, just read it. I'll not tell you what it is. Just read the paragraph just yesterday. See, this you notice every day. We jump the traffic lights. We don't carry the licenses. We don't carry the papers, although it is available. But we just don't carry it. We are not in the habit of having it. Although the government has said that you can have it on your, soft copies on your mobiles, that is good enough. So they have put a Vahan thing where you can store everything and can show it, but still we do not. We jump traffic lights. And then, in spite of being more educated than the cops, we touch their knees, pay them some good amount of money out of our pocket. Now, we also find that as a child, what we have encountered, our parents expected us that we must be having very good handwriting. We must be communicating in terms of good English. Fluency has to be there. We also talked about our general knowledge has to be very good. We must have very good mathematical and analytical abilities where we must score 100%. And our, if it is a CGPA, we must get A as far as this CGPA is concerned. And as far as possible, we must get 100 percentile in the exams that we appear. So the child would be able to write, speak, calculate, and in addition of being aware of who the President of India is. What about the ability to distinguish between right and wrong? What about directions in life? What about the development of instinct of sharing and fighting for what is right? What about the instinct towards self-respect? What about the instinct towards freedom, say freedom of expression? Though freedom of expression is enshrined in our constitution, there are few amongst us who are able to stand up for what we think is right. Most of the people grovel in front of power. That is a common thing that we normally notice, and just think over as to why this has happened. This indicates shortcomings of trainers as well as the training process that the people have been exposed to during their lifetime. Of course, the first trainer is your mother, and first institution is your mother's lab. So your parents have failed to train you and have put undue expectations on your shoulders. That is there. If that is not there, then things would have been different. We would have grown up with values. I'm not saying every parent. I do believe that large number of parents are, of course, caring for the value system. But there are few who are not. And those few are making lots of difference because laws are not meant for the majority. It is only meant for the minority kind of thing. And that too a microscopic minority. No wonder there are few students who aspire to be entrepreneurs. Aspirations for job where one does not have to stretch oneself to achieve in addition to unaccountable exercise of power is very, very high in society, right? This has to be changed. We need to shift our perspective from the development of purely functional competence to behavioral competence, lifestyle development, perception expansion, as well as orientation development that is there. I'll just repeat this. We need to shift our perspective from the development of purely functional competence to behavioral competence, lifestyle development, perception expansion, as well as orientation development, which are there. Now, if you talk about skill training, we find that the entire Bhagavad Gita is focused on developing orientation, right? Look at the impact. The entire functional competence of Arjun, the great archer, is zilch without the functional distinction between right and wrong. In fact, without orientation, functional competence can create negative results. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to watch that serial called Mahabharata. And the war, when it was going on, Arjun was taken by Krishna, the charioteer of Arjun, to the battlefield. And what Arjun does is that he was competent in firing all kinds of, those things that he had in his back. But what happened that he takes out one particular weapon called Brahmastra. Now, as we are told, I don't know how for true or wrong, but this is what we believe it was there. We know that Brahmastra was the weapon of last resort. It was to destroy humanity. The minute he takes out Brahmastra, there was big hue and cry everywhere. The Krishna says it, the man who is the creator of Bhagavad Gita, and he recites, his sayings are there, and it is Krishna who stops Arjun from using this particular weapon and tells him to use the smallest of weapon, explains him why he should not do it. Now, had he not been there, Krishna not been there, the functional competency of Arjun cannot be challenged. But the thing is that his use of the extreme weapon was not desirable, because the humanity did not do anything wrong. Everybody did not do any wrong. It was only his enemies who should be targeted, and not everybody within the enemies. Only few people in the enemies that he wanted to target. But using a generic weapon was not desirable. And therefore, that is the orientation which tells you as to what to do, which is good for humanity and what is not good for humanity. That is very, very important. Why is there a rising evidence of children of well-to-do families taking to crimes? Right? Too much focus on development of functional competencies and their assessment through exams, too little or no focus on orientation and lifestyle development, which is there. I think I have overshot the time. I'll continue this tomorrow. Thank you.